Alright, so welcome back to Islebound. So now we're going to start going over the cards. Let's quickly go over these event cards first. We won't talk about what these events actually do, as in what you might encounter. We'll let you kind of either read them as I talk real quick or discover them on your own. But if you want to complete this event, you're going to have to pay a pirate. So you have to have a pirate to do that. If you want to complete this event, you're going to have 2 fish in order to complete it. And by completing these 2 events, you're going to get an influence for each one. And remember, you also have to be at least visiting these isles in order to complete these events. Okay, here we have Underval, and here we have Asylum. This one's relatively easy to complete as an event because all you need to do is exhaust a crew member who has the hand symbol above their head. Well, that's all you have to do in order to complete that event, and you get 1 influence for doing so. For this event, is basically almost the same, except it's a little bit more. In order to complete this event, you need to exhaust a crew member with this symbol, the administrative symbol, above their head, and you also have to pay 2 coins as well, but you'll get 2 influence for doing so. Okay, these are both very similar. In order to complete these events, you actually must have enough attack power to do so. You're actually going to basically attack these events. So you're going to be using your sea serpents, and possibly pirates as well, to attack these events. And if you fail, meaning you didn't have enough attack power because you decided not to use all you had, or just simply didn't have enough to take over, which might be the case with this one, Fell's Garden, you don't get to complete the event, obviously, and you'll have to try it again later. And of course, just like with no moral attacking, if you used more than one, you would still lose 1. So if you only use 1, you would have to discard that sea serpent or pirate. If you used 2, you'd have to discard 1 of them. You'd still get to keep the other. If you use more, you'd get to keep most except 1. So that's basically going to happen the same way. But if you have a successful attack with these events, with this one you'll get 3 influence, and with this one you'll get 2 influence, if you manage to have an attack power of 4 and attack power of 2. Okay, this one here, you're actually going to have to exhaust 2 crew members. So not 1, but 2 crew members to exhaust in order to complete this event, but by doing so you'll get 2 influence. This one, you're going to have to exhaust a crew member with the hand symbol above their head, but you're also going to have to be able to pay 2 wood as well. But then you'll get 3 influence by doing so. Okay, there's even more to do. This one is obviously a harder one to do because not only do you have to exhaust a crew member with the hand symbol, you also have to pay 4 fish, but if you do so, you'll get to complete this event and get 3 influence. This one you're going to have to exhaust a crew member with the hand symbol as well, but you're also going to have to pay a book too to get 3 influence by completing this event. Now we have these 2. In order to complete this one, you just have to exhaust a crew member with the administrative symbol above their head to get 1 influence. And for this one, you just have to have a successful attack power of 1 in order to complete this event. So basically, all you really need is a pirate, because you can roll, even if you roll a 1, you're still going to have enough attack power to easily complete this event. So basically, all you have to do is have this, but you still have to roll the dice for this event, regardless of the case. And then you get 1 influence by doing so. Now you'll notice this slot here is empty. On your board, on this board here, you're going to be utilizing both sides. Same thing with the trumpet here. You're going to have 2 to choose from. So if you ever come down to a point where one pile is empty, you'll simply move over the top card from the other pile to now make it 2 separate piles again. Okay? Now, in order to complete this event, you're going to need an attack power of 3, and you'll get 2 influence by doing so. This one, you're going to have to exhaust a crew member with the administrative symbol above their head, and you're also going to have to pay a coin. But by completing these events, you'll get 2 influence each by completing them. And then we just have 1 left. once you complete this event, you have to first, of course, pay you have to exhaust a worker with the hand symbol, and you also have to pay 4 fish to get 3 influence. But then, now all of the events are complete. And so you're probably thinking, well, that's great. We're out of events. We can't do any more events. Wrong. With events, that's where events differ from those cards that let you brag about your crew members and your towns and stuff like that. These cards are a one-time use, and you will never use them throughout the rest of the game. And there's not that many of them either. There's less of these than there is of events. So you'll go through this pile maybe faster, possibly. But once you run out of these, you won't be using them ever again. So that means if these are gone and you decide to visit that isle known as Farwold, well, you're just going to get, either a wood or 2 fish. Which is why they did it that way, that you still get something else besides just some renown. Because it's a possibility that you might still visit that isle. Now, if you run out of events, because you've used them all, then you'll just simply shuffle the event pile and then and then separate them into 2 piles once again to do the events all over again. So you can continue to do these events over and over and over again. So that's really cool. And that might be something that might happen with the events, especially if you're playing with a 4-player game. So that's how the events work. That's how they all work. Now let's kind of talk about some of these influence ones. Okay? All right. This is Brag of Your Friends, and it works with the influence track. Okay? So here's the influence track. Okay? You're going to, if you're the player who decides to brag of your friends, you're just going to get 1 renown. Plus, you're going to get 1 renown per cube you have on the influence track. You don't take them off. You just simply have to have a lot of cubes on here to get a lot of influence. So if you decide to brag of your friends, and you have more influence than the other player does, or players do, then you're going to get more renown than they are, because you're still going to share this section of it here with your opponents. Because that's how that works. That's how that one works. Now, brag of your learning. The same thing with brag of your friends. You get 1 renown. But then you're going to get plus 1 renown per book you own, up to 7. So you can never get more than 7 with this. Same thing with your opponents. They can never get more than 7. And you don't pay the books. You just have to have the books. But that's how that works. So that's a lot easy ways of getting some renown. Getting renown gives you resources and stuff too. So it's totally worth doing these. Now, brag of your control. You get 2 renown by being the player who decides to brag of your control. And then the players who will get this, they're going to get 2 renown per seaboard where you control more towns than any player. This doesn't work with the 4 ports. It only works with all the other isles. So there's 4 boards, seaboards, with 3 isles on each one. If you're the player on the first board that has, like, let's say you have 2 and the other one is controlled by another player or isn't, well, you control the most, so you get 2 renown for that isle. If your opponents, if you had the majority of the second, you'd get 2 renown for that one as well. But if, for instance, a player owned more isles on the 3rd seaboard, then they would get 2 renown for that, and you wouldn't get anything for that one. And if nobody owned anything on the last one, well, nobody gets renown for that anyway. But that's basically how it's going to work. So if you're playing with a 4-player game, it's quite possible that maybe only 1 or 2 players are going to really benefit from this, because they have to be able to actually have the most isles controlled by them personally in order to get renown. And even if you're the player who has no control over all of the other isles, let's say you have no isles where you have the majority, you still get 2 by playing this. So it's still worth doing, especially if you have an opponent who has tons of seaboards controlled by them. This is worth doing, so that way they don't get like 2, 4, 6, 8 renown. You get 2, and they still get, obviously, some renown, but they would get 10 renown. So you're preventing them from getting 10 renown, because they would get 10 if they were to do it, because they all owned everything. But if you did it, you would get nothing. But if they did it, of course, you would get absolutely nothing. But if you did it, you get 2 renown, and they only get 8. So there's some strategy involved for sure with some of these. Now, brag of your pirates. The player does this, they're going to get 1 renown, plus 1 more per pirate they have in their possession. You don't use them, you don't lose them, you just have to have them, up to a maximum of 7. So if you do this and you have more pirates than the other players, you're going to get more renown than they are. But that's how that's going to work. Brag of your pirates, brag of your control. Okay, here we have brag of your city and brag of your supplies. With the city, 1 renown plus 1 more renown per building you own. Now, you don't have to have purchased these or bought these or built these. It's per building you have in your nation or your town. So if you have more buildings, you're going to get more renown than your opponents who have less. Brag of your supplies is if you're the player who does brag of your supplies, you actually do not get renown at all by playing this. The only way you're going to get renown is 1 per wood you have. So if you're the player that plays this, you're not going to get any additional renown unless you have more wood than your opponents do, to a maximum of 7 again. So you'll never get more than 7 with brag of your supplies. If you have 10 wood, for instance, you wouldn't get 10 renown because you can only get a maximum of 7. But that's how those 2 are going to work. We have 2 more. Brag of your reach and brag of your crew. If you're the guy who plays brag of your reach, you're going to get 1 renown plus 2 renown per town you control. So this one is a little bit different from the seaboards because it's just per town you have. So if you have a few towns under your control, you're going to get 2 renown for each town you control. Each isle you control, you're going to get 2 renown. Of course, your opponents, if they own a couple of towns or isles for that matter, they're going to obviously also get some renown too, 2 for each. Now, brag of your crew is we already talked about brag of your crew, but you're going to get 1 renown, and then you're going to get 1 renown plus 1 more for every ready crew member who isn't exhausted or injured. You're going to get 1 renown for each of them. And that's how the influence cards work. So we've talked about all of the influence cards, and we've talked about all of the events. And in the next video, we will cover what these do. These buildings will do when you have them in your town. We'll talk about them in the next video.